You had some criticisms for the show. For me, I'm happy to dive into them. Let me just get those pulled up here, and we'll kind of go one by one. So, you say that I have some rather negative views on feminism, and that's a shame. You believe there's many aspects of feminism that help men as well. You say that I tend to book largely one type of woman that can make all women a certain way, even though that's one small subsection of the female population.
You have been getting better, though.
I'm not sure if this is to make women look bad or he simply enjoys talking to women who are OnlyFans models. Okay, a couple different things there. The easiest one to dispel would be the OnlyFans thing. So, who here has OnlyFans? Anybody here a sex worker?
Nope.
Okay, anybody ever been a stripper?
Nope.
Oh, well, damn
I've
it.
danced before.
You stripped?
For like a year and a half.
When?
It was years ago.
Like when you're in early, because you're 31, right? Mm-hmm. So like early 20s?
Like mid 20s.
Okay. Did you? What's the term? Isn't that that's what guys do?
Yeah.
Were you? What's the fucking
A sugar baby?
other term for it? Whatever. Any escorting, anything like that?
No. So I was very strict on, like, it was about the dancing. And I saw that it was an environment where the majority of the women were kind of like looking for a jackpot to kind of get money spent on them by like one person. Ultimately, I don't think like it was an environment where I personally was comfortable. I didn't see myself making friends. I didn't really see myself making the connections I wanted in my life. So,
How long were you dancing for?
a year.
Okay, so it's just Cena here at the table. All right, so I mean, this is a criticism we often get. Oh, Brian, you bring on like X type of woman. You bring on these like sex workers, OnlyFans girls. We've looked at the statistics for, thorough statistics of who we bring on. It's like 15% of all the guests we've ever had have done OF. And then, for example, on this panel, I mean, the currently only active OF girl is over there. So, yeah.
Your newer episodes are getting a lot more different people. I like that.
Varied.
So.
It's varied, yes.
Yeah.
Sure, there's been some episodes where it's like almost all the girls do OF, and then there's episodes where none of the people on the panel do OF. So it varies from show to show. But overall, the average of the guests we have on, it's like 15% if you were to average it out. Mm-hmm. So I kind of reject this criticism. Most of our guests don't do OnlyFans. And the thing is, it's an open invitation for pretty much anyone. Oftentimes people will levy this criticism of the show and say, oh, Brian, you should bring on smart women, parentheses, like me. I would run circles around you, blah, blah, blah. And instead of, talking shit back or whatever, we almost always will politely offer them an invitation. Almost 99% of the time, people who make any criticisms of our guest selection are complete cowards. And despite a polite invitation, they almost always are all bark and no bite. So ultimately, I would just say we've had plenty of smart, intelligent women on the show. Anybody is welcome to come on the show. But oftentimes, people talk a big game online, but when we actually extend that invitation, that challenge for them to step up, they're cowards. So I don't know if that thoroughly addresses your point or if you have anything you'd like to contend with there.
No, I think, you kind of said your piece about the OnlyFans models, and I do agree. You're getting a lot more different people on here. Mm-hmm. I think the only other thing I forgot in my list of criticisms was sometimes I feel like, because this is a dating podcast and kind of talking about how stressful it is for people, especially men, to find someone to date, especially with dating apps. And I'm glad I never had to do Tinder because it's all looks based. But I feel like sometimes instead of getting to the root of the problem or having meaningful discussions, sometimes it turns a little rage baity, which is good for viewership because that's actually how I discovered the show. YouTube algorithm loves this podcast. I get it recommended to me a lot. And then I also think my fiance, he loves YouTube shorts, and they get on his a lot, and then I saw, I'm like, what is this? So that's how I kind of discovered the show.
Okay.
But people will always have different views, and you can't change someone's mind if they're very set in their ways. But I think we can have meaningful discussions and not have to make fun of people or...
Yeah, get to the actual criticism, though. So what's the rage bait?
Well, some of the videos and shorts I've seen, it's been making fun of, and then they usually have titles like, libtard feminist gets destroyed, or
I don't think we use the term libtard, but yeah, sure, we use destroy.
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk destroys. Gen Z feminist girl.
Rage
Yeah, sure.
baity titles, or just there's clips where people.
Well, let's just define our terms here. What's rage bait?
It's kind of stooping to it's not addressing your debate opponent as like a person that might be of equal measure and being able to see them as a person. You're just like, look at that liberal over there. I humiliated him. And
Well, I think, hold on, there is a bit of a differentiation we can make here. So there's the way a clip is titled after the fact, but then when you're actually sitting there in person, I don't think there's any, at least to that degree, any sort of dehumanization. Obviously, you're trying to make compelling titles that are interesting, that'll make people want to watch them. But I wouldn't categorize them as clickbait insofar as they accurately describe what is actually occurring in the clip. So if you want to call that clickbait or rage bait or whatever, if it is the case, from my perspective, and seems like a lot of people agree with the clips, if it is the case that Andrew Wilson, Charlie Kirk, Brian Atlas, Michael Knowles, Candace Owens destroys raging feminist liberal woman, and that's what happens in the clip, I don't really think that that's necessarily rage bait or clickbait. But in any case, typically when the person's at the table, we're not being particularly, what's the term for it? Aggro towards them, I guess. I mean, I usually just match energy, but again, what is rage baiting about it, I guess?
Well, it's not just that, like, differences of opinions, but, like, for example, and one thing I think that's bothered me about this particular podcast is it going into physical appearances. And I understand some of your...
Wait, but I have that in the notes. I'm happy to dive into that, but I want to get to that. I'll get to that one later, but I'm still trying to get what is the rage bait thing?
Well, that's kind of was my segue, but just the...
We'll get to that. I'll bring it back to this, though. You said that Brian has some rather negative views on feminism, and that's a shame. You said that there's many aspects of feminism that help men as well. So what are my negative views on feminism?
Well, you don't seem to like the idea, and it's not just you, it's Andrew.
Okay, well, he's not here, so.
I know, but one of the things Andrew likes to say is women shouldn't vote. And, I think that really goes back on the history of suffragettes here in the U.S., like May Wright Sewall, Caddy Stanton, and I just...
I mean...
And it's rage baity. I mean, I don't think a whole group of people should lose their constitutional right to vote just because he doesn't like that women can vote. He thinks it's ruining the country. And that's just kind of rage baity because I think the majority of people you ask, like, I live in Indiana. It's pretty conservative. My dad's very conservative Catholic. If you ask my dad, hey, you think your daughter should lose her ability to vote because women make bad decisions? He'd be like, no. And I think a lot of conservatives are more...
Well, hold on. That's not really a very compelling argument. If I ask my father X, like, that wouldn't be a really strong basis or foundation for argumentation. Like, for example, like if I were to say, well, my dad says, like, we should just, like, nuke the entire planet, like, that's not a good foundation for argumentation. Let me quickly address this. So Andrew's position I have a different position than Andrew. Andrew's not here. So I don't think that, I don't share that position. Like, I'm mostly fine with women voting. I am fine with it. Let me preface it. Let me frame this better.
Please.
I have criticisms of the female vote insofar as this. Women were able to so women should maintain the vote. But what I'm saying is women should have the corresponding duties that men have. So feminists were able to secure the vote for women without the corresponding duties that men had to carry for them to get to the vote. So that would be forced military conscription. Women for 100+ years have had the right to vote without any duty to this country. Women have no duties to this country. Men have duties. That's an inequality. I'm not saying we should take away women's right to vote. I'm saying we need to equalize the duties that men and women have to this country. I'll let you guys come in just a sec. So yes, I'm fine. I don't think we should repeal the 19th. What I would like to see, though, is a equality of duty between men and women. As far as Andrew's position is concerned, he takes a bit. Look, I'm not here to defend Andrew's position. He's not here. But my understanding of it is it's not simply like he thinks women suck and they shouldn't vote. He's just saying, almost my position, well, women don't have any duties, so why should they have the right to send men to war to die when they would never be forced to be in that position?
I don't think we should send people to war. I don't like men being conscripted.
Wow, there should never be murder, and nobody should lie, and nobody should cheat. These are empty platitudes, but realistically, if we're operating in reality, I don't think there should be. Okay, there should just be world peace in perpetuity, and nobody should ever have hurt feelings ever. That's great. Realistically, though, there's other countries that are belligerent to the United States, and one day it's conceivable we're going to be involved. I mean, well, there are currently ongoing wars, not really with massive United States involvement, but it's conceivable, even if you're a peaceable nation, a peaceable people, that there's outside nations and countries that are aggressive and belligerent, and they want what you have, and they will forcefully take it. So even if you're a peaceable people, you need a defense. You need to be able to defend yourself with military. So there will always be military. There will always be war.
Well, I don't mind there being a military. I'm just saying the draft. I've met veterans both in Vietnam, and then I had a neighbor who fought in World War II, and they were drafted. And a lot of them, like my neighbor, he really did not want to be part of the war. He was in his 80s by the time I met him, so he didn't really want to talk about PTSD. That wasn't really something in his vocabulary, but it gave him a lot of trauma, and that's how I've talked to a lot of people who I've met, like in Vietnam, who've had a lot of PTSD from that. You know, they went against their will, and I don't think they got a lot of compensation for that. You know, I talked to a lot of veterans that they have trouble with the VA for health care.
Okay, so...
And I think that, you shouldn't force people. There's a lot of people who do want to volunteer for the military, and that's great. But, I don't like the draft for people, especially kids. Like my neighbor who was in World War II, he was just turned 18. He was a kid from Indiana who hadn't really traveled outside the state prior to that, and he got shipped off to Germany. And that was really hard on him. I thank him for his service, but he always told me the best day of his life was when he got out of the Army. Right,
but so the question at hand isn't whether selective service, the draft, forced military conscription is right or wrong. The question is whether or not being forced to go to war should be something that is gender neutral.